Hello, my name is Carolyn Ricciardi. I'm a resident of Western Massachusetts, and I'm here today with Paul Avella, who's running for state representative for the 2nd Middlesex District, which is comprised of 3 towns, Chelmsford, 3 precincts, precinct 3, 5, and 7, Littleton, and Westford. Paul, it's great to see you. Thank you for welcoming me into your home.
Alan, thank you, and it's a pleasure hosting you this evening.
Thank you. Well, you know, I thought it would be great to give the viewing audience an opportunity to meet and get to know you a little bit. Basically, like to find out just a little bit about you and what you've been up to up until this point in your life.
I'd be happy to share my background a little bit with you. Native New Englander. Grew up in Rhode Island, a small town of Smithfield, just about 50 miles from here. Shortly after high school, joined the United States Air Force and began a 32-year career of just traveling around the world, various places. European assignments, Asia assignments, North Africa a little bit, and then certainly some of the Middle East activities that we're all too familiar with here these last years. Right. But some of the things I did do in the Air Force were quite interesting. My maintenance career, in the early stages, I was in nuclear weapons and the maintenance thereof. And then shortly after that, finishing a degree on active duty at night school from the University of Maryland, I was picked up to go to officer training school. And shortly after officer training school, I began flying training. I flew F-111s, which is a swing-wing fighter bomber, a large airplane in the United States Air Force. Did that for a couple of years. Then following that, I went to F-16 training. F-16 is certainly a sports car model of fighter aircraft, if you will. Right. And from that sort of experience, it's very enjoyable, if you will, to be able to fly and employ that airplane. But certainly there's very serious business involved with it. And throughout the world, I've had the opportunity to serve. So I've said, you know, I've been in Europe many times, a couple tours in Germany, where I spent about 6 years, 3 years at 2 different times, 2.5 years in England, 2.5 years in Italy, a year in Greece, many times in Turkey, and then certainly oftentimes going into Iraq also. Had a tour in Korea, South Korea. Spent about a year and a half there where I was a squadron commander in F-16s. Had about 300 men and women working for me directly. And it was our job to keep 24 airplanes flying and mission ready to be used as the United States determined we'd have to be able to use those assets. Very rewarding. Having men and women whose mission was focused and intent on being able to defend our freedom and our democracy and our liberties, and to be at the lead of that pack of folks was just wonderful.
Must have been an honor.
It was an absolute honor, and a humbling honor at that. The squadron I had was 35th Fighter Squadron. The Panther was our mascot. So it was certainly, from that perspective to the animal, its characteristics and its ability to hunt, it was very synonymous, and really you could say analogous to what our mission was. And then after that, staff jobs, and we all had those sorts of opportunities. But in those various staff jobs, tremendous amount of responsibility. As an example, one job where I had about half a dozen people whose job was to administer contracts valued in $21 million. That was really $21 billion with a B. So there was, and it was very many different countries that we had these contracts with. Getting back to when I was squadron commander, we had over $750 million worth of capital equipment. That was my responsibility. And being able to maintain that and keep it so that it worked properly was a challenge for us.
Absolutely.
So as time went on, again, those assignments started moving more around the world once again. You had a family at this time, and you were traveling with your family members? I had 3 girls. The girls are all grown up now. They very much grown up, so much that we have 4 grandchildren now.
Oh, how wonderful.
Yeah, 3 granddaughters and a grandson.
Oh, that's great.
And it is wonderful. And being close to them now, because they all live in Rhode Island, that's wonderful. So we're able to visit with them often, and they with us.
That's great.
So it is good. And they had certainly their opportunity to be in various different parts of the world also.
Great learning experience for them.
Culturally enriching. The diversity that they grew up with different languages and certainly different cultures,
Right.
Was instructive to them, as it was for me.
Sure.
It was an opportunity for me to see differences, if
Right.
you will. Almost a learning laboratory of sorts,
Right.
where what worked, what didn't work, what system had good aspects to it, what system perhaps not as strong,
Right.
whether it's governmental, economic, social, cultural.
Sure.
So there was that compare and contrast.
Right.
And certainly in that comparison and that contrasting, being back home, the United States, and very specifically New England, because the values of New England are important to me. I grew up being taught thrift, industry, and fortitude. And I paused after each one of those because they were important to me.
Right.
It was natural. So as I began traveling to other parts of the world and meeting different people and living in those different cultures, I came to see that how we think as New Englanders
Right.
was not quite the same in other parts of the world. And I think that's obvious to some folks,
Sure.
certainly. And certainly sometimes it's...
You don't realize it, though, if you don't get out of this area. You have sort of a limited view, but you have that wider perspective, which is fantastic.
And I think that is true, because that perspective, that lens, has opened very wide for me. But still, the prism, as I said, of thrift, industry, and fortitude is how I view opportunity, how I view problems, and how I view opportunities to solve the problems. Our society here, in that quintessential New England background, is certainly a strong culture. It's a strong society. It's not that we don't have this in other parts of our country, or in other parts of the world for that matter. But certainly here, as I say, I came to love New England, growing up here, and always wanted to return. And
here you are.
And here we are.
And my question to you is, when you made the decision to return to Massachusetts and settle here in Littleton, how did you become involved in the community? Because it seems like that's something that probably would be something you would do right away.
It was. And I'm just going to back up just a little bit, and I'd like to just tell you how we even really came here.
Yes.
We were in Hawaii before coming here.
Oh, must have been tough to leave Hawaii.
Well, Hawaii was certainly beautiful. Spent 2 years there. I had a wonderful job there. I was an Air Operations Group Commander. And our responsibility is command and control of air forces throughout the Pacific region. And as a matter of geography, the Pacific is 56% of the world. So we had a great deal in a large area of responsibility that we were going to command and control air power. And it was the job of my organization to be able to facilitate senior commanders and their ability to direct air power as necessary in a manner of their choosing in the interest of the national defense of the United States. So challenging and very rewarding.
A very big job.
And I would say that we did a great deal to help maintain the peace in a lot of what we did.
And when was this?
That was just a little over 4 years ago when we left. Although as far as a reality check, we were on Waikiki the last day we were there in the morning, because we flew out in the evening. We arrived through San Francisco into Boston, and 3 days later a snowstorm.
Not in Hawaii any longer.
So we weren't, so it was welcome back home.
Right, exactly.
But although home we were happy to be.
Yes.
So that was, well, a contrast in weather.
I would say.
It was certainly, in a way, a good welcoming back.
Sure. You immediately knew where you were.
We did. And when you asked, why did I come back here, I went to my boss. And quite literally I just said, please send me home. Really? I knew where I was in my career. I was at 30 years at that point.
Right.
It was a very rewarding career, a successful career. Air Force treated me very well. Retired as a colonel. I'd been a fighter pilot, a squadron commander, group commander. I had a great career.
Yeah, I'll say.
And what was good about it, it was about time. Could feel it. It was time to go home.
Something was calling you back.
And my boss sent me home. Sent me to Hanscom.
Wonderful.
So I could finish out the last couple of years. And while at Hanscom, one more time in Iraq. Over the course of some months, 2004 to 2005, I was a Deputy Operations Group Commander for an air operations group that we had in Iraq.
And you were based where in Iraq?
I won't say the exact location, but roughly about 40 miles to the northwest of Baghdad.
Sure.
There were great American men and women with us there. Just great Americans who were focused on the mission, knew what it was, and knew why they were there.